Two Saudi oil tankers and a Norwegian vessel were damaged in an attack off the coast of the United Arab Emirates near the Persian Gulf this weekend. Only hours earlier, Iranian and Lebanese media had reported explosions at the port. Details of the incident remain unclear, but U.S. and Saudi officials are describing the incident as sabotage. Iran's foreign ministry called for further clarification and information about the incident. The General Secretary of the Six-Nation Gulf Cooperation Council described the incident as serious escalation. To further discuss, we're being joined now by retired Colonel Wright. Colonel Wright, thank you for being with us today. So Saudi Arabia did not say who was actually responsible for the attack, as the Pentagon sent additional aircraft carriers out. They sent missiles and a squadron of B-52 bombers last week to the Persian Gulf. Iran has responded with a warning that they're prepared to retaliate if attacked. Does this sound to you like the prelude to a war?
Well, it certainly is a dramatic escalation in what's happening in the Middle East, with the United States first moving an enormous amount of military equipment, an aircraft carrier, which essentially is a little city with 5,000 people and tens of aircraft on it. The Iranian government has responded to that deployment by saying, you know, this is our part of the world, and with the sanctions that the U.S. has had on Iran and the decrease in the amount of oil that's being purchased because of the sanctions the U.S. has had on Iran, Iran is saying, you know, don't mess with us, and it becomes a very difficult and dangerous situation for us all.
So the Pentagon has said this is just normal operating procedure. We're planning on going out there anyway. Does that sound suspect to you at all?
Well, we already have a lot of military ships in the Persian Gulf anyway. To have another deployment of an aircraft carrier sounds like an escalation to me. And in fact, the Trump administration has been saying they're escalating they're putting the pressure, maximum pressure on the Iranians.
Right, they're certainly not mincing words about escalation.
No, not at all. It's a very overt move by the Trump administration, and I think it's trying to provoke Iran. And these incidents that you've just mentioned this morning of attacks on two
foreign vessels.
The investigation on that of what happened and whether it is a false flag,
right,
or whether it is actually, you know, who did it? That's always the question.
Who done it right now?
That's right.
So National Security Advisor John Bolton said that the U.S. is not seeking a war with Iran. Those are his words. But as you mentioned, deploying the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is a carrier, it's a bomber task force, essentially, out to the Middle East, doesn't sound like standard operating procedure to you. What do you make of the fact that it was the White House that made this announcement versus the Pentagon, who normally addresses these issues? Is there some reading between the lines you can do for us there?
Well, indeed, the White House and John Bolton in particular, who has been noted for the last 30 years for being for regime change in many, many countries, to include Iran. And for Bolton and the White House to be making the announcements on one level makes sense because it is a major, major deployment. On the other hand, the Department of Defense normally is making these announcements, but I think it shows the level of you know, what the White House is trying to do, which is really
ownership of it.
Well, oh yeah, they are, and it's essentially see what we're doing and what are you going to do about it.
Like you said, more overt escalation.
Yes.
So it's been pointed out by Scott Ritter that the intelligence Bolton is citing is coming directly from Israel's Mossad. How much foreign influence should the U.S. allow over its own military operations?
Well, I don't think the foreign influence, particularly Israel, it has a real interest. I mean, we know what the Iranians want. They want regime change. They want the Iranian government taken down. Right. The Israelis do, as does the United States. I mean, let's be honest about it. And for the United States to be using Israeli intelligence on this makes me feel a little uneasy about it, because there are other agendas that the Israelis have, as we've seen on many places in the Middle East.
And lastly, Iran's foreign minister, Javad Zarif, has also criticized Bolton's statements as being directed by Israel or Saudi Arabia, even the UAE. and it has even suggested that sabotage was carried out to ignite this regional conflict. Do you think that could actually be possible?
Well, yes, we've certainly seen in the history of the United States involvement around the world that there are incidents that the United States has done, whether it be the USS Maine in Cuba back in the 1890s, whether it's the Persian Gulf for the Vietnam War. The United States has, well, and let's just look more recently at weapons of mass destruction for Iraq.
WMDs.
The United States government, of which I was a part for 29 years in the military and 16 years as a U.S. diplomat, does not always tell the truth.
All right, we will leave it right there, and thank you for your service and being with us today, taking some time. Colonel Ann Wright, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.